Hello and welcome to Procrastination Point's video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books, discuss what went wrong and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of Crewel by Gennifer Albin. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Chapter 10. The next morning, Ad is happy to wake up and see the actual sky, not the obviously fake sky that the guild wants her to think is real. She lays in bed and daydreams about what her life would be like if she'd been from this area instead. However, her imaginings are crushed with the idea that none of this is actually real. It's all been pre-woven for her. A maid comes in to tidy up and is surprised to see Ad not only still there, but also still in bed. Ad gets up, dresses, and has her breakfast while the maid awkwardly stands around. After a bit of idle small talk, Ad realizes that this is Priyana's mom. Ad tries to address her condolences for her younger daughter, but if you guess that Priyana's mom has no idea of a younger child, you would be correct. You've clearly been paying way more attention than Ad has. Anything, I say, expecting her to give me a message for Priyana, but instead she leans in to whisper, "Keep an eye on her for me." Holy run-on sentence, Batman. Also, if you're confused as to who said the last line, it would be Priyana's mother, not Ad. Editors, where are you? Because you clearly weren't here to actually fix this. Ad meets up with Enora at the rebound station. She's shaking slightly, although Ad doesn't understand until Enora shares her news. Ad is to train directly under Loricel. Loricel doesn't approve of Cormac's influence on the Coventry. She thinks we should be self-governed. Intentionally or not, the author made the good people to be feminists. However, upon hearing Loricel's opinion about this, Ad is confused, because she thought that they were self-governed. My dear girl, have you been listening to literally nothing anybody has said to you? My God, it's like talking to a brick wall. Moving on, Ad asks if she should tell Loricel what she can do. Enora advises against it. This makes Ad think that despite how close she'd gotten to Eric and Jost during this tour, there's still an obvious wall between her and Eric and her and Jost. Back in her room in the Coventry, Loricel is waiting for her. She dismisses Enora and then uses her crueler powers to turn off all of the security cameras in the room. She then pointedly tells Ad that she's known that Ad was an ex-crueler since Ad was 8 years old. That's when Ad slipped up and accidentally got caught playing with time by her parents. Why Loricel never knew beforehand is beyond me, but whatever. Loricel goes on to say that she's watched as Ad's parents tried to teach Ad how to fail, and wishes that Ad actually had failed. However, when Ad asks why Loricel wanted Ad to fail, Loricel doesn't have an answer for her. Instead, she only has condolences about Ad's dead family and missing sister. She then turns the loom in the room so that it's in a different section. She explains to Ad that the Spencers told her that this is a terminally ill woman whose daughter sent in a request for removal. The thought of being tasked to explain why your mother needs to be removed from the fabric of reality sickens Ad. This section is a lot calmer than the one Mela asked Ad to rip earlier. It's got less threads connected to the damaged one, but as Ad locates it, she still finds that the thread is connected to enough other threads that ripping it does leave a bit of a hole. Loricel says that she's sending it to repairs, but then insists that there's so much more for both of them to do rather than to repair that section. This is followed by Loricel giving what's basically amounts to the heaviest the head that wears the crown speech, that it's difficult knowing what thread to pluck and how it can benefit society, that she understands that it's not easy to ask somebody to do this, which is kind of circling back to Loricel's failed hopes of Ad failing. She then tells Ad that she can also create not so much more abstract things like weather, but more tangible things like mountains and lakes. She shows Ad how she takes raw material and adds a lake into an empty grassland. Then she basically embroiders an edge around the lake, which she explains is how it gets sealed into reality. Loricel explains that farmers will eventually come and farm fish from the lake, that it'll be used to feed the people nearby. Ad contemplates the lake and how it's going to bring life into the area, and she looks down at the thread that she's been holding onto from the ripping earlier, and she gets halfway there and stating that Loricel is life and Ad is death, but I feel she's not really understanding the yin and yang situation that's needed for everything to function. That evening at dinner, Enora announces to everybody that Ad is now training in crueling work. As everybody gushes about how lucky Ad is, she can't help but look out over the room. Priyana is now sitting alone thanks to the fact that she's the only one still in actual training. For some reason, Ad finds herself feeling sorry for Priyana, although I'm scratching my head over why Ad cares so much about a girl who was so unreasonably mean to her. A random woman sitting next to Ad starts trying to talk to Ad after the woman brings up the upcoming ball because they're all stuck in high school, apparently. Ad finally realizes that the woman is doing nothing but trying to climb up the ladder, which is confusing to me because I was under the impression that your rank was based on your weaving talent and not because you bettered up the right person. However, Ad is more upset with the thought that she's going to have to see Cormac a lot sooner than she wanted. Although, if you ask me, I think Ad's preferred amount of time to see Cormac would again be never ever. Chapter 11. If you were expecting something other than jumping directly into the party, I feel like this is the first book that you've ever read. Ad complains about how risque that her dress is for the party, but in the same breath and in the same tone, talks about the roast pig that they have for dinner. This is why I can't take this book seriously. Cormac comes and shuffles Ad off to the table where they're assigned together. Ad is kind of upset that they're sharing with a bunch of male politicians and their wives, but upset in the same way that she's upset about the dress. She doesn't do or say anything, so I don't know why she bothered to tell the readers about this upset. Cormac gives Ad wine. And now, I always have a problem with alcohol because I think that it's a miserable drug that ruins people's lives. People use it as an emotional crutch instead of actually working on the problems. It's even worse when you remember that Ad is supposed to be 16 years old. Yeah, 16 is that magical sweet spot number for a young adult dystopia series. If she's old enough to be the chosen one, then she's old enough to drink. But this is nothing but a fictional book depicting fictional people living in a fictional world, and real 16-year-old girls are going to read this book and go, but Ad was given wine, therefore it's alright if I go to town on some bottles myself. A book like this might be fictional, but books can often have lasting impressions on the real world, both good and bad, especially when your target demographic are impressionable teenage girls. Then the narration will not shut up about what they're eating. I suppose that I don't mind too much, but I can't remember the last time I saw a woman eating beef, she admits. This is the complete opposite end of toxic masculinity where men are so frightened by things that we need to label them with stuff like dude wipes. However, I've never before seen sexism so rampant that they were forbidden from eating a cow before. The wives at the table start to talk about something called third-gen renewal patching. However, Ad has no idea what that is. And I have to say, if you're going to write a dystopia, this is how you do it. You don't throw terms like rebounding into the reader's face, yet fail to explain what it actually is. At least have the main character be confused about what's going on, much like in this scene. After they finish dessert, the Prime Minister shows up and begins his speech. It's so dull that Ad wishes that she were literally anywhere but there. She zones out and begins to think about Jost hand-feeding her, which, what an odd thing to think about, but I guess we gotta hammer in the idea that Jost is one of the two love interests here. The Prime Minister then starts to talk about how they believe that they're within a year away from mind mapping, that you can now remove Grandpa's memories before he's removed. Don't want to forget the precious memories about your problem kid before they get cold? Well, now you can. The ladies at the table wonder why it's taken so long to get it. Then, as if an afterthought, the Prime Minister thanks Loricel for all of her hard work. Because, yeah, that's the kind of recognition that women are dealing with here. Only holding the literal fabric of reality together, no big deal. Cormac is quick to duck away from the table after that. Ad doesn't want to leave because there's so many men dragging spinsters onto the dance floor, so instead she sits and listens to the absolute hate that spews from the mouths of the wives. They basically say that Cormac will never get into a higher position because he's too busy chasing after little girls like you. The book openly admits that Cormac chasing after 16-year-olds is problematic and paints him as a pedophile. Excuse me when I say this, but As Ed goes to leave, she can't help but comment that the unmarried men there are disgusting, that only a power-hungry girl would go after him, and then immediately jumps into trashing Brianna, who is hanging off as such a man. First off, let's not trash other women. Second, let's not have 16-year-old girls hanging off from the arms of much older men. Okay, thanks, bye. However, despite already having Brianna, the man can't help himself and grabs Ad when she tries to move past. He is super creepy about how both of them are there. There's no doubt in my mind that the dude is probably thinking about betting both of them for a threesome. Mercifully for Ad, Brianna is jealous and keeps trying to divert the politician's attention back to her. The narration never says as much, but Ad is probably thinking that Brianna can have him. When Ad is finally able to escape, the man calls her Alice, which kind of tells you everything that you need to know about scummy guys like this. The only thing Brianna and Ad are to him are things he can stuff his eggplant into. However, she doesn't go far and runs into Eric. She tries to hide how disappointed she is that it's not Joss. She complains about the creepy old man who will not stop hitting on her. Then Eric asks her to dance, which she agrees to. As they're dancing, Ad mentions how naked she feels in the dress. Eric likes the dress, however, and then this is nothing new except to hammer in how gross Eric is, especially considering the fact that he's one of the two legitimate romantic options. I hate everything about this book. As they dance, Eric explains to her that all of the politicians are married, that the young wives go in the hopes of social rising. However, after a certain point, they all realize that it's useless and stop attending the events. Ad is of half a mind to go warn Brianna about her man's wife. Eric wonders why Ad cares when Brianna has been nothing but rude to Ad, and I kind of have to agree with Eric on this one. Ad starts trying to give the entire woman look out for other women spiel, but Eric cuts her off and reminds her that Brianna is throwing herself at the man. And while I'm all for women protecting other women, I also have to give Eric another point. It's Brianna's choice to do that, even if it's foolish on Brianna's part. Eric says that you literally can't social climb your way out of this endless hell, which is something that I commented upon earlier, so thanks for making that canon, I guess. He goes on to say that nobody has ever been able to escape here before, although I'm not sure if he's talking about the Coventry or the fabricated world that Loricel maintains. And thinks that if she's going to escape, it's going to be without the help of a man, because she's different from all those other women. She's a feminist. Nora comes over and drags Ad into the bathroom. When they get into where the toilet is, I'm not gonna lie, I thought for certain that Nora was going to force Ad to throw up in order for her to maintain her slim figure. Mercifully, although this book is heavy on pedophilia, at least it doesn't have a romanticized eating disorder in it. No, instead Nora tries Ad for taking an interest in Mayla's boy toy. That Ad is playing with fire and continuing this relationship with Eric, which is confusing to Ad since she was literally only dancing. However, this quickly degrades into Ad calling out all of the lies and garbage that's going on around them, which is good, but then Ad says, "You're not my mom," which, so much for being mature. Ad has to stay in the bathroom long after Honora left, too afraid that she'll cry in front of the cameras. As she leaves the bathroom, Eric catches up with her and starts to take her somewhere. He asks that Honora didn't chew her out for being in Mayla's territory, and then kind of laughs about the entire thing. He explains that yes, people are always watching, but that on a night like tonight, the usual minders are too busy ensuring that girls like Brianna stick to their chastity vows. They won't miss Eric and Ad. They go out onto the balcony and start dancing together. I'm not gonna lie, it's giving love is an open door. I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop with Eric. He goes on to say that Mayla controls him every bit as much as she controls the rest of the girls there. As Ad looks at him, she sees the same frantic, terrified look she saw on her dad's face right as he shoved her into the tunnel. Ad wonders why Mayla cares so much, especially when Ad isn't even under Mayla's power anymore. But that's the thing. It's easy to bully people when they're under you, but when they end up having more power than you, and I also like to add more youth and beauty, people tend to lash out in anger. It's at this point that I realize that Mayla is the pure definition of peaked in high school. That's why she's chasing after the pretty boy a decade younger than her, despite Eric's obvious disinterest in her. I'm kind of tempted to say that Mayla is a victim in all of this as much as Ad is, because I doubt that Mayla would be like this if she hadn't been forced to emotionally stagnate when she was 16 years old. But at the same time, being that cruel and terrible is 100% a choice, one that the other spinsters aren't making. Eric says that Mayla has had it out for Ad since she was brought there. He doesn't know what's going on, but seems to guess that it's something that was ordered well above Mayla's pay grade. He says that girls who run or whose parents try to hide them are usually killed on the spot, that there's no way that girls like that can be loyal. Ad is confused over the entire thing since that implies that the girls who willingly go are somehow going to be more loyal. Which brings me back to a point that I raised earlier, which is, if the control over these girls is so important to the government, why does the government not take control over the baby girls as soon as they're born? They can memory wipe the girls without actual talent or power and marry them off as they see fit. However, once again, I feel like this is one of those things where I've clearly given this more thought than the actual author ever did, but the book brought it up, so... Ad then says that the guild is holding Amy over her head. Eric asks if Ad actually saw her dead parents, and she says no, only her father, whom I'd like to remind people she didn't actually see her dead father, only a body bag. There could have been anything in there, including laundry. However, this is nothing but an opportunity for the narration to hammer in the idea that Ad's mother is probably alive, being held hostage somewhere. Ad is so happy that she kisses Eric because, yeah, she's apparently that dumb. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book, Snark's always free and updated every morning. Newly added to Patreon is to become a member without paying. You'll get access to the same things on Tumblr, but on Patreon. Supporters can have access to so many more books starting at $1 a month. Also, new is a 1-week free Patreon trial, so be sure to check that out. Special thanks to Dawn and Phoebe for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is, but not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just $10 per chapter. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of spicy short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys. Yes. Right? What you doing? What you doing?